Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Bets Golden and you are joining me on my Christmas in July series. Today we're going to be doing a whimsical card. Now, I want to remind you that the products that I'm using are all from my stash. Nothing is new except with the exception of this Dream Drops, and it is the white clouds. However, everything that I'm doing, I would love for you to do in just take it and come up with something out of your stash. It would be awesome if you didn't have to go out and buy anything, but just think outside of the box. So hopefully this will give you some ideas on how to create Christmas cards with things you already have on hand, for some fun stuff to send out and be ready for the holidays. So today I am going to be using the Dilutions line and a lot of her technique on how she uses her paints. I'm just using the baby wipes. These Dilutions you can find pretty much at Michael's. I've seen them at Hobby Lobby, Joann's. You can get them online. You can pretty much get them anywhere. If you don't have the Dilutions line and you still want to do this, use just a different kind of paint. Anything will work. And again, just use a different kind of paint. It's totally cool. And so I'm just blending everything in with a baby wipe, just like she does. And it's better if you get it off the lid. And then once I have a good coverage here, I'm going to apply one of her stencils and remove some of the color. So this one is done. And the colors that I used were Cherry Pie, Blush, and Rose Quartz. And one thing, if you do have the Dilutions, you always kind of, especially where I am, you want to make sure that you hit it with some water before you seal it, because it will dry out. But the water, this is a movable paint, which is why we're able to do this technique. So from here, I'm just going to put my stencil on, and I'm just going to remove it with my baby wipe. Remove some of that color with my baby wipe, like so. Some pretty holly leaves, and the look I'm going for is definitely obviously whimsical and bright. So I'm doing some non-traditional colors on this, the pinks and the reds, and I'm going to show you my card base in just a minute. All right, so this is my background. Super cool, really fun technique. Now, whenever you do use your stencil with paint that is water soluble, you want to make sure that you clean it off, or else it'll transfer onto your next image, and that would be no fun. All right, so let me just take a real quick wipe down of my area so that I can move on to my next step, which is going to be, I'm just going to work on this. This needs to kind of set up. So I'm going to set this aside to dry, and we're going to work on our centerpiece. And I am using, this is probably at least 1 year old. I think I got it last year and I found it at Joann's. So I think it's 2 or 3 years old. This is also the Dilution Christmas line. And I'm going to be using the Christmas tree, the snowflake, the ho ho ho, and Merry Christmas. And what I did for this is I just took 2 blocks and I just backed them with stamps. So this has the Christmas tree on it and the little cute snowflake. This has the sentiment and the ho ho ho. So that's kind of what I did, just to save some time from trying to find more blocks. So I'm just going to do my sentiment on the inside, and I'm going to be using the Distress Archival ink. But again, use whatever you have on hand. This saying, make it work, is like seriously my favorite. I love that saying, just make it work. So I have Archival, StazOn would work, any kind of ink would really work for this. It's just the sentiment on the inside of the card. I am trying to do a bright whimsical, so I am not scared to veer away from those non-traditional Christmas colors. So that was the Mermaid Lagoon, and this paper actually is from my stash as well. It's kind of an odd, it's an 8x8, so my card base is kind of odd today. It is a 5 1/4 by 4, so that's kind of weird, but it doesn't matter. It still fits in an envelope. It's going to be, it's going to be handmade and fun, and whoever gets it is gonna love it. So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. All right, so for this tree, it's my centerpiece, and I'm going to be using my embossing. I'm gonna emboss it, and the embossing powder that I'm using is 15 years old. It is actually still smells like green apple, but I just really like the bright greenness of this, a little bit different from the norm of your Christmas colors. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get a nice coverage on my stamp, like so. That side looks kind of dirty. We'll do that side. I think I was touching it with my fingerprints. And then just going to lay it down. If you do notice, I do have a foam pad under this. This, I believe, is by Darris. I picked it up for $8 at Joann's, and I just cut it down to 6x6 size. The foam sheets that you find in the children's department also are wonderful for cling foam stamps. It allows that cushion that's needed. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to cover this in this green, and then we will heat set it. And I like to just dump this back in like so. And for any of those excess powder, I'll take a really soft, this is a Japanese brush, and I just love it. It's so perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and heat set this, and you'll know that it's heat set when it turns shiny, but I'm not going to do that on screen because it's super boring. Went ahead and embossed this. It's all shiny. I know that it's ready to go. The reason why I embossed it is because I want to add some color to this, and it resists that color, so I know that it's going to stand out, which is exactly what I want to do. I am just using these beautiful mermaid brushes from Jane Davenport. Again, I got these probably over a year ago at the at Michael's, and I used my 50% off coupon, so I got all of these brushes for $20. But what's awesome is when the ink runs out, I can go ahead and put like the Dilutions mist in it, glimmer mist, or I can make my own and fill it up again, and it still will work. So you really get an Aquaflow pen and a wonderful color when you purchase these. So that's why I did that. If you don't have these, no worries. Just use a marker, use color pencils, use whatever you have, just make it work. That's my saying right now, you know, just make it work. You don't even have to use this tree that I'm using. Use any kind of Christmas tree stamp or image or wreath or whatever you have on hand. The important thing is that you're getting your Christmas cards done. You'll be ahead of the game when the season shows up. You will have some beautiful handmade cards, and you will have enjoyed creating them, and you'll use some things that are in your stash. So that is the most important thing right now. We're not going for the latest and greatest. We're not trying to break the bank. We're just trying to, you know, have some wonderful cards ready to go. And as you can see, it resists that embossing beautifully. So that green, that apple green just really pops through. It dries up nicely, and I'm going to go ahead and just trim this out. My little tree is trimmed and cut ready to be put onto the card base, but we need to go ahead and finish up that card base. Remember, we were waiting for it to dry. If you're having a hard time and it's just not drying, take your heat gun to it for a few seconds, doing both the front and the back, and then it should dry for you just fine. Now from here, I want to go ahead and layer on some of the snowflakes that is also from that Dilutions set. I'm going to be embossing on this as well, and I'm going to be stamping off of the page as well as on the page in an odd number. And the reason is because it just is more pleasing to the eye. if it's odd, and it also looks more natural if it goes off. Some of the images go off of the pages. So I'm going to kind of create this this pattern here. Then I'm going to do another one just right up there. I'm going to go ahead and set this in my tidy tray, and I can throw the whole thing down on it because I'm going to be just putting it all back into the jar. So I prefer to do that. And there we go. And then in the spots that I didn't want it, I can go ahead and just take my little brush and just brush that off on those spots that I didn't want it to be embossed. Now, look at this. I did have my little powder pouch out next to me to run it over this before I did this. And you know what? I forgot. So I'm going to set that off to the side, and let's go ahead and heat emboss this. I am on my Ken Oliver craft mat, which can hold up to 420 degrees of heat, so I don't even have to touch this, and I can just heat set it as it is. This is all heat embossed. However, if I go ahead and throw my my little tree on, it still looks like it needs a little bit more to me. I'm going for that bright whimsical look. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some ho-ho-hos on. I'm going to be using the Mermaid Lagoon color out of the archival line. Again, when you're doing this, you know, just do what you have. I really don't want you guys to feel like you need to go out and purchase a whole bunch of stuff to create Christmas cards, because you don't. You really, I guarantee that if you've been at crafting for more than 2 or 3 years, you have everything you need in your stash. So use it. All right, just use it. And I'm using what's in my stash for this. To create a whimsical bright card like this, you simply just need to have images that are kind of fun, childlike in nature, and also use the color scheme of Christmas, but you know, brighten it up a little bit. Instead of using a true red or that deep, beautiful burgundy red, use, you know, a candy apple red, or use pink. I used pink in this. I used pink in cherry apple pie. So, you know, think outside of the box like that. All right, now I think we're getting close to being ready to put our tree on, but I do think that I need to kind of ink the edge a little bit in this lagoon just to make it really pop. Let's say that you only have clear embossing powder. You could totally go ahead, run some StazOn or some permanent ink over your snowflakes for a distressed look. That would be really, really fun as well. I'm going to be using pop dots to place my tree on. So let me go ahead and just get this on the base first. Since I am going to be sliding it around for proper placement, I'm using a glue. I like this sometimes better than tape runner, especially on screen. You've probably heard me say it if you've watched me, that my tape runner is huge and bulky and doesn't look pretty and will take up the whole screen. So I prefer to use glue because it just, and this glue is really good. I found it at my local craft store. One of you guys told me about it and I was intrigued. So I went out and I bought it and I love it. So thank you for that recommendation. All right, there we go. Now let's go ahead and just finish off our tree. I have a few more things I want to do to the tree, but the first thing is I do want to put it on some pop dots. Again, I think I got these in a pack. It came with the smaller ones and then larger ones for $2, and they were on sale for 50% off. So I got these foam dots for $1, which is wonderful. I'm just going to center this up in the middle of this card the best that I can, eyeballing it. It's looking pretty cute, but we're not done yet. I want to put a star on the top of the tree. I'm not liking the green, so I'm going to go with, get this, something else from my stash. My star, nobody will know that this is from the 4th of July. Unless they're my family and they got this card, and then they'll know. But they won't care because it's still cute. Always make sure you sign the back of your card too. Super important so people in the future can remember who made it for them. All right, I'm going to finish off by adding some dimension to this. Again, if you don't have these, don't worry about it. Just use what you do have. Stickles would work, or you could just simply color these in a different color. You could put little jewels in. You could do little teeny tiny buttons. And the reason why I'm flattening this out, you guys know that I love my drops to be dimensional, is because this particular dream drop takes on the tint of whatever is under it, and so I kind of want it to show through a little, and the thinner the layer is, the more so it's going to have that green tint to it, which is what I'm looking for. And now we just have to let it dry. Our card is done. We have a fun, bright, whimsical card that will be ready to go into the mail at Christmas. All right, you guys, I really, really, really want to see what you do. I want to see how you interpret this. If you don't like bright and whimsical, that's cool. Then don't do bright and whimsical. Maybe you decide to do a paint background and you use traditional Christmas colors. That's awesome. You know, let it inspire you however you feel led to do it. And then please post it on Instagram, tagging me, you know, at Bets Golden. Make sure you also tag the photo. I want to share it in my stories and possibly on my feed. So please, please, please make sure that you tag me whenever you upload it. It doesn't have to be in July. If you don't get around to this until closer to Christmas, that's cool. But I totally want to see what you guys create, and I want to share your work so the rest of the community and more of the community can see it. I'll share it on my Instagram stories, on my feed. I'm also will be shared on my Facebook page, on Scrappy Cafe, on my account, on Twitter. So I really want to share your stuff that you do. So please make sure that you always tag me. And if you're not following me on Instagram, please go ahead and do that. I also will follow you back. So anyway, yeah, I just really want to see what you guys do. And I want us all to have a less things on our plate kind of Christmas. I know that at Christmas time we get overwhelmed. I have 3 kids, 3 teenagers, and it gets so busy, you know, with everything going on. And so sometimes we are so excited to start our cards and they just don't get done. And by doing this early, we can enjoy the process. We'll be ready for this one component of our Christmas to be done, and it'll bring some Christmas joy to our friends and family when they get it in the mail. So I encourage you to start it. Don't worry about getting the latest and greatest. Use what you have. Nobody is going to think any different. They're going to be so touched they got a handmade card. All right, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I certainly hope that you do so. Please leave any questions or comments down below. Give this video a thumbs up, and I would so appreciate it if you would share it as well. Until next time, happy Christmas. Oop, happy crafting. Christmas is on my mind. 'Tis the season.